Singing is just a great thing for the spirit and for the soul. I mean, I I think it's great to just do it for the fun of it and to not try to tie it to, to not try to commercialize it. I think that's, you know, we make music because we love doing it and we want to commercialize it because that's what we want to spend all of our day doing. But there is a little bit of when you start to put the pressure on trying to make it financially viable, it unfortunately does sort of take some of that natural joy that you might have for it.
I think when we write music, though, we're just writing the music that we want to listen to and that we want to hear, and it just happens to be commercial because we have more of a pop sound.
No, you're right. I mean, whenever we're writing the song, like that is our meditation. That is like when we are so happy. The rest of the world, the walls just dissolve and we're just like in our studio making stuff, and there's no thought about who's going to think what about this. It's just like, what do we want to do? And that's the freedom of pursuing art where, there's no rules for it and you can kind of just express yourself. But I mean,
that's a good way to think about it. That's a good way to think about it. Putting things out into the world that you wish were out there, things that you want to consume that don't exist.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think part of what even got me into the notion of becoming a music producer at all was just because I felt like I had good taste in music, but I couldn't find enough people making music that I liked. And almost out of like a frustration of like this feeling like, oh, like I could do this if I wanted to. And like that started when I was in high school. But, it's this sort of thing was like, well, then prove it. That's like, the natural follow-up voice in the back of your head. And it took me a while to just be like, fine, I am going to try it. And I'm going to download stuff and start messing around, and then started the long, near decade-long journey of making stuff that I wanted to sound great, and it fell short consistently for years and years and years until you eventually kind of hone the craft. And now, I mean, I feel like the songs that we're putting out, we feel like is, worthy of being our own favorite songs, if not for somebody else's. And that's, it's just something that took a whole lot of time. And, for just even circling back on the voice thing, I mean, even just to get to a place where, it all kind of happened in reverse for me. I think some people get into music because they're like an amazing singer when they're like 4. And so the whole rest of their lives, they have people telling them, oh, you're so talented at this, you have to pursue it. Like for me, it was the other way around. Like baseball was the thing that it was like, oh, you're left-handed, you're tall, you can be this great player. And I kind of felt obliged to pursue it out of, people's expectation. But music was the thing where it's like, I have like no business becoming good at this. There's nobody who has any expectation. Like, and there's something liberating about just going into it and just being like, I don't have anything to lose here. Nobody's expecting this of me, and I can just slowly improve and do my own thing. And, certainly there's a part of me inside that was like, kind of knew that I had a potential for it. And even when I couldn't sing well, I just kind of believed that I'd figure it out eventually. So yeah, where all this is going, I don't really know, other than just,
that's okay. That's the nature of a long form podcast. You don't have to know where it's going.
I have to say about his singing voice though, when did you move out of Brooklyn, Ryan, again?
I don't know.
It was like 2018, like what, fall or something?
Yeah, I think it was I think I moved home in the winter of 2019, starting that new year. Or maybe it was 2008. No, it was
2018, yeah. Well, the point is, I think it was fall of that year. Mm-hmm. But when I would visit him, and I didn't visit him too long before he moved, he was like showing me some of his demos, and the improvement that took place both from his singing voice and his songwriting from, I think, for about fall of 2018 to like 6 months later, pretty much, was like
quantum
crazy.
Yeah, it was.
I don't
honestly,
know how you did.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a weird thing for me to have perspective on because it's just one of those things where you just start to make some breakthroughs after, it's kind of like you're just digging and digging and digging, and finally you hit that turnaround point where
it's a tipping
it
point.
just that tipping point where it just gets easier. And I mean, I think with your voice too, it's kind of like you have to like break it in, and you have to like, it really is a muscle. It's a series of muscles that has to work. And
Yeah.
you know, I think it's kind of like a leather shoe or something, or something where like the more you wear it, the more you're able to sort of like warp it. And but yeah, I don't know. I think as far as a songwriting thing, I mean, there really was, I moved home, and I mean, in my time in New York was really quite formative. It's like when I met Ian, and you know, we started writing songs together, and I didn't even know how to play guitar until I really met Ian, and he sort of encouraged me and gave me a lot of guidance on that. Like there's all these things where it's kind of like just kept chipping away at things across the board, and it just rose up to a level where it was finally like, okay, now this is something worth trying to finish and trying to release. Because everything prior to that point, I mean, I knew it myself. I mean, when other people would criticize it, it'd be like, yeah, like it's good, but could sense that there's like, I mean, I knew myself that it wasn't at the par of the music that I loved. But yeah, I mean, for just that tipping point from just putting in, I mean, the hours and the work, it just kind of all started to happen. I mean, I think the vocal lessons that I took in New York was like really, really huge for me. I think I really learned how to feel what my voice should sound like. And I think when you're learning to sing, you have to find your voice. And I think a lot of people, again, learn by trying to sing other people's music. And that was really helpful for me. But I think part of starting with a vocal coach and just learning proper technique is that you actually learn what your voice is supposed to sound like when you're not trying to make it sound like something else. Because if you think about it with your talking voice, like we can all do impersonations of, you know, like I can make my, you know, voice sound like way higher, but like my natural voice is down here. I can talk
in a British accent like this for the whole podcast.
And so we do the same thing singing, right? And if we're singing the way that we think that we're supposed to, we end up, you know, it's just not as natural. So there's some amount of.
I was gonna say it sounds kind of stupid since I've just been fucking around with singing in an amateur way. I feel like it's opened up the musicality in my normal speaking voice, where I'm less afraid to make my voice emotional speaking, or maybe like get excited or like do things with my normal speaking voice that I would hesitate to before I started messing around with singing, because I realized that your voice is capable of more registers and more expression than you think, and some of that transfers over to the normal communication and speaking, where I feel like I definitely talked in much more of a monotone before I started fucking around with singing during quarantine.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one thing that I, you know, again, learned from working with this vocal coach is that like there's a proper technique actually to like how you should be talking too. I mean, a lot of people talk in a way that, and I have really bad habits developed with this stuff where, you know, you kind of like wear out your voice just through talking in a certain way. And yeah, the voice is just a fascinating thing. There's really so much nuance to it that I would have never understood until just, you know, working with people who are professional vocal coaches. And I mean, I think this goes with anything that you want to get good at. It's really worth, you know, investing time in learning from people who, you know, can really introduce you some of the nuances of the techniques, and it'll save you a lot of time. And, you know, I still don't have the best habits, but, you know,
it's all part of the process.
It's all part of it. And, you know, part of the thing is once you know the rules, you know where to break them. I mean, I certainly don't sing in perfect singing technique. I mean, I could sing in like an opera voice, and that's, you kind of learn the different flavors that your voice is capable of. And I think finding the voice that you end up singing with and trying to record with as a musician comes down to a lot of trial and error. And, you know, for me, I ended up, I think, finding where my voice sounded really nice by learning songs, by like Death Cab for Cutie, like Ben Gibbard is a vocalist who I really admire, and
Yeah.
Mark Foster from Foster the People is another vocalist that I really admire. And like, I'm not bad at impersonating either of those people, if I want to, because I've learned how to play their songs, and that again was sort of a way of learning how to do it.